Welcome back to Produced by HenryxGoodwin. Today we have another mix breakdown. We are going to be looking at the song Awake that I made with my friend VENUS VULANI. Let's start with just a side by side to see how it went from what it was to what I made it become.
Get my feelings across in the right way. I woke up the courage to see your face. I don't see your pain.
Okay, let's dive into it. So let's look at what was sent over to me originally, right? It was the bass and vocals. I think that was it.
Get my feelings across in the right way. I work up the courage.
Kind of a different vibe of the song.
I don't see your face.
So what I wanted to do primarily was to change the bass to add a bit more chordal changing dynamic. So that's what we did. We added a bit more. We kept kind of the similar sort of rhythm that it had before, but we had it go like dun 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 dum 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 dum. So again, we're still keeping that original bass. If you think of a piano's here, it's still mainly keeping towards the root note of the key, but we're doing a lot more up and down, up and down. So I wanted to change that bass, and the minute that I changed that bass and added the drums in, suddenly I realized that I need to do a lot more with the other instruments. So we have this guitar. And again, we're slightly starting to get more of a chordal structure. 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3. And then we chuck in some keys. This gives it far more of like, I feel like a kind of sexy late night feel, these keys. Out of everything in this piece, those keys really, that glissando in the key really changes everything, you know. And then we've got a little pad here for texture. Just a little darkness, a little extra darkness. We got some strings. A bit more like epicness in comparison to the rest of it. It gives it a bit more grandeur rather than just being a laid back sexy track. And then the synth over the top, which comes in at the like hook, which I felt was like a really weekend type of synth, which I made with this plugin, the Vacuum Pro, Dirty Phaser, chuck some overdrive on it, and voila, we ended up with that. So that's all the elements of the track really that I added. So altogether, can't forget that. Again, to like just emphasize that kind of late night sexy kind of feel, we got those deep breaths, kind of moany sort of breaths. So that's how it all kind of comes together. Now let's look at each thing individually. Drum wise, we've got Pro MB helping everything cut through so that the drums don't get lost in the mix. And we have the Pultec EQP1A adding a little crunch, because sometimes you got to add a bit of crunch to them. Ignore that, the ghost kicks and stuff. Here on the actual kick, we have that kick preset thing, and then we just kind of adjust the boost and, you know, all the different settings just to make sure that that kick can punch through everything else. Standard kind of just sound tuning on the rest of the drums. When we come over to these effects, we've reverbed out. If you really want to get those breaths and stuff standing out, you need to add some lusciously reverbs that just cascade through the piece. So we've managed to do that. Bass, we've got a lot of stuff going on the bass. We have the MV2, which, as you will have seen from when I did Saturn Return, I love to put good leakage on and then just make sure I get it pumping with whatever I change it to. Here, it was getting a bit lost in the mix, so with the MB, the multiband, I raised that mid so that it would pump through, not just because of bass, but you'd actually be able to hear the bass in the mix, like especially if you're not listening on like a proper system or anything. Here with the Q, we've just had to go hard on this frequency here. That frequency can just dominate mixes if you let it. Now let's see, I feel like we've got one low and one high here, again to help it actually be heard, especially when you're not listening on proper speakers. So this is the low. You see that adds a little. Oh, this is the low, low, low. So here we just make sure that we've got the Ampeg on. People know that I love the Ampeg. I love myself a bit of R bass. Here we've got low boost, and then we're just making sure that it pumps. Here, a little bit of MV2. Really, we just want it so that we can get that high level going. And again, we wanted this bass presence on just so that we could, again, you see that the reduction's doing so much work. I don't want that high going crazy. I just want enough of it that I can hear it when I'm balancing everything out. So sometimes with basses I will put two in, make one higher, make one lower, and just see how they work together. Try and kind of forge something out of them. Then we move onto the guitars. A bit of fresh air on these guitars. Now this is a free plugin, and fresh air is really great for just, if something feels dull or flat, you can just add this in and it will just lift it. Just lift it enough. With the guitars, we wanted obviously a bit of the mid out because I don't want that low resonance from the vocal getting mudded by all the rest of it. Now, we got a little distorted guitar here. Let's give that a listen. That's just something that I've just recorded in. Kind of using it like a riser. Reminds me of like Trilogy The Weeknd, Kissland The Weeknd is the type of vibe you can obviously sense with this, that it's got little infusions of that type of sound in it. And then a little reverb on that guitar there. With the keys, we've got the Teletronics just to make sure that they all sit together quite nicely. Here we wanted to get rid of all the low from there so that we could let the actual bass pump in, especially when there's no bass. We don't want it to sound like there's still loads of bass from these keys. And we've just got a load of stuff here, just tinkering with everything just until you find that right sound, that right amount of punch through the mix. Really, the rest of the stuff, you know, we got some fresh air on some of this, and yeah, just odd things. They're not really changing loads, they're just little imperceptible things that you don't want to hear. Let's look at the sends on the strings. We have natural concert hall type of vibe, and we've got this Galaxy delay going in just to like keep everything together, make everything feel like it's part of a wider room, like everything's being recorded together, when of course it isn't. Now the synth is like all over the place by design, okay? So I wanted it to sound like it's kind of punching through, almost like, you know, like the film Alien, when like they're coming up through the goo and it will like punch through. I kind of wanted this synth to feel like it's trying to punch through the mix, because it's quite different from everything else in there. It's like quite abrasive, it's quite sharp. So there's no point in just sitting. He needed to bam through everything. So we double overdrive here and a little tremolo just to give it a feeling of like unpredictability, basically. Like, where's it coming, which ear, da 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 da. If you're listening through headphones, you'll hear that it's going. There it went across and then it stayed there. Now it's going back across. So we did that. Reverb, crazy. You can hear the tail even now. 2 reverbs and that same delay, just to really hammer it home. So that's really the instruments, right? And then we get into the vocals. Again, like I said last time, Georgina's got such a good voice that you don't need to go heavy on auto-tune ever with her.
When I wake up,
so again, it says
I
disabled
stare
here,
at your face.
we've got
this head
not much chucked on, tracking 125. If I were going to put it to where I see it as being human but auto-tuned, I would put retune speed down onto 10, flex tune onto 25, human maybe onto 10, somewhere between 10 and 30, and tracking on 50. But she doesn't need that, so we keep it off, you know, we keep it stepping. De-esser right here. That wasn't on the actual mix down, but always a de-esser. I hate harsh frequencies. Here we've got a de-esser and a sibilance, one after the other, so that's two different de-essers, just making sure they're keeping everything ticking over when it comes to that high end, right? Because we don't want the high end in there. We have a EQ subtractive, taking away the low ends because she's got a rich low texture, which means that you can get a bit too much in there.
I don't know why,
and especially here, you know,
I can't communicate.
You just want her to be floating over the rest of this stuff, right?
It keeps
a little compressor with the RVox. So
rehearse what to say.
Here it's pretty low gain.
Get my feelings across.
A little bit of compressor. These vocals were already actually kind of well compressed, if that makes sense. Kind of just like naturally. Either the way she was holding the mic or something like that. We got another compressor on here, again, just to tame everything down. Let's look at the sends. We got a reverb, we've got our delay, and then we've got a nothing, a phantom. So here we've got the differences between our hook and our verse. We got the Helios. First time that I've used the Helios, I think, was on this track. And again, it's just doing some really simple work, because if you look at the actual vocal take, you'll see fat there, thin there, and you know, you sometimes you just gotta. Sometimes you just can't be bothered to do any manual stuff. You just want to put something on that will take care of it enough, but not flatten it to conformity. You don't want it to be so compressed that it feels flat, but you also can't, because you've got so many different parts of it, you can't just have this part here getting completely lost, especially when it goes down like
I don't know
down low here.
I can't communicate.
You can't be bearing that. So sometimes, you know, you can find a plugin that will do better than anything that you might do manually. Here we got the Fairchild 670. Bloody lovely plugin. I mean, it looks mental, doesn't it? It looks massive, but it's just great. It's got some great presets as well. Look, like you've got you can use it on pretty much everything you want, which is the dream. When you come to the hook, instead we've just got a C2, which is again another compressor, but the way I use it is a lot lighter usually when I'm using the C2. Here, because we've got so many different layers, I've made it so that the main vocal is just sitting in one spot basically, and like being tame so that it's not going to pump through with everything else. And Butch Vig vocals, you know that I love to chuck a lead vocal on it and just like use it to do everything a little bit. It's like nice rounding, it's a little sprinkle on top. Let's see what these other layers are. We got subtle. So here we're using waves harmony to get like a
get my feelings across
in
the right way.
quite
Work up the current.
it's a vocoder, but it's relaxed. It's not like a vocoder that's superseding the vocal at all. It just really sits down. Just a really cool kind of vocoder plugin, Waves Harmony. What is it? Moving Triads, I think, is the best. I'm trying to think, is there another preset that I really like? No, I think it's Moving Triads. Moving Triads, and usually won't have to touch it much. We got some background vocals here, which I think are just like, I got to record some different takes. Yeah, and then they can just sit there. Usually with my background vocals, when I'm doing a track like this, I will just change the formant down 1 or maybe 2 on the minus. Then we've got some side chained. This is for like when it all kicks off and I let the instruments ride a bit in the hook. I'll put like something like this, just again, we've got it formatted down 4. This Saturn's just doing auto-tune, so it's like riding with the instruments a bit more than taking charge. And it's funny, it kind of sounds like Slay, which is something that I quite enjoyed at the time. Now let's go over to a bit which I very much enjoy, which is the Ruin the Mood section. You could think of this as like a breakdown-y section where everything comes out.
When I wanna let you in. How do I begin? Can no longer pretend.
So
But I don't wanna ruin the mood.
Just before the hook, I thought I'd have some fun with the vocals here. So everything's like very like creepy. It's like really angsty at this point, right? So this first one, we've got the drive getting gradually, and you're starting to hear those distorted resonances, and then you've also got an echo coming up like that. So what that's doing is kind of showing you that we're going from the vibe that we just had where everything was luscious and smooth, and it's devolving a little bit. So we're kind of creating our dynamics with stuff like that, right? We're having those go up while this lower one kind of joins it here. And it's like adding a bit of anchor as the other vocal on top's going. What the hell's happening? What the hell's happening? So here we've got the crystallizer. I've used 2 crystallizers on it. Now this is a temperamental plugin. You really have to like think about what you're doing with this, because it can just completely change the vocal to the point where it's unrecognizable. Sometimes it doesn't even sound like a vocal. But we've got those 2, an IDX Intelligent Dynamics free plugin, I believe, just to put some squeeze on the resonances, especially with crystallizer, something like that can squeeze it, because sometimes it will be so wet and so delayed that it will just like take over itself. It's kind of like the Roman Empire of plugins. And then, you know, just a standard, we still want it to sound like a vocal, so we put like a vocal EQ on it. And then again, we have the waves harmony, moving triads, so luscious. And what I love about it is that it like changes on its own kind of axis. You know, it will take one of the lines of that vocoder and it will be like mood, and it adds this extra layer of movement without you having to do anything, basically, which I love. I can hear that. Ruin the mood. It just adds like a really fun texture, which if I was just using a vocoder myself, I would not get that by itself. So they're the main like ports of fun, I think, with this track. Now let's head over to the master to see how we went from what all that is to pumping it all up and making it feel right. Okay, so we are in the master chain. Now, once again, we start off the master chain with a side low cut. So this is just cutting all the low frequencies from the sides of our mix. In the middle, we've still got it. And the reason we put it at the beginning of the master chain is so that everything in the master chain will pump it up the middle. Because when you're listening on speakers or something, they don't want to be giving you side low frequencies. It's basically the point. So it means that it all concentrates to the middle. So when you're listening, the bass will be like, which is what you want. So that's how we start things. Then we have the high frequency limiting here, which is just again to stop any of those really high de-essing sounds, the S's, the P's, the whatever, any high hats or anything, just to make sure that they are sitting and not dominating. We've got the Neve, which is, you know, doing its job. It's making sure everything's expanding and not subtracting from anything else. Saturn, bit of magic mastering, the old bloody classic, great saturator, great plugin for a multitude of things. Puig Child is just adding glue. It's just so good for bringing out the side frequencies of whatever you're doing, and like bringing up, like, if you look at a mix, you think about like low, kick area, snare area, piano area, and then you got all this area here. And a lot of mastering is raising that, because in your mix, even when you feel like it's there, when you do start mastering, you're like, oh, maybe I should have done that. Then we got the Pro Q, just taking out a couple of bloody frequencies, bloody sick of them. You've got the God Particle, which is like a limiter / compressor. 98% is what I've always been told to do. So that's what I do. And honestly, I could do 100% and would never think about it, but I just instinctively put 98% on. And that just raises everything. Limit, tick, tick, tick. You always got to chuck a limiter on just to make bloody sure. So do that, adjust the gain to whatever. I can go crazy on it. But you effectively want it to not be doing much, but like if there is one or two instances where it does go above, bam, limit. And then you just want a metering plugin to make sure that you know where you go.
Rehearse what to say, get my feelings across in the right way. I walk up the courage.
So you see there at the hooks, we are at about like -9, right? Which is great. A lot of people would be telling you to aim for like -14 over here, and this will probably end up at like -11, -12, just because the track isn't always as loud as it is at the chorus. But that's good. I say you want to be somewhere between -8 and -14, depending on the style of track. If it's something where there's a constant 4 on the floor, or it's just really high energy and tempo, this is not that. In the verses, for instance,
Can no longer pretend.
See, like, there's only like 3 instruments and the vocal, so I was pretty happy with that level. Remember, the level isn't everything. As long as it sounds good, keep it good. So that was a very quick breakdown of the song Awake by Venus Vulani. You can go stream this everywhere. You can go over to her YouTube, give it a listen, give the visualizers a watch. You can go over to Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you stream music, listen to this song, and I will be back next week. And I'll probably be reacting to something. I'll probably be hating it.